Hi everyone, my name's Hickman and I'm a solicitor in the immigration team at Bindmans. Welcome to the latest edition of Immigration Unpacked. Today I'm joined by my colleague Elisabeth Attwood, who's another solicitor in the team, and we're going to be talking about automatic curtailment under the EU settlement scheme, including a recent fairly major development on how pre-settled status can be lost. Welcome back, Elisabeth. We first talked about curtailment back in October 2025. This is a bit of an update on our previous conversation. And so today we're going to be looking at automatic extensions and when people might see their leave curtailed. And we've said we're going to try and do a follow-up episode in a couple of weeks to talk about what happens if you actually receive a notification that your leave's been curtailed. So just to say, we're not going to be talking about steps you take today. Come back in 2 weeks for that. So, Elisabeth, let's start with the big change, which is on how absences from the UK affects pre-settled status. So first of all, we had this big change last summer, was it? Or last year sometime, where they changed how they calculated absences for the purposes of settlement. And this is a change that affects pre-settled status. So what the law used to say is that if you had pre-settled status and you were outside the UK for more than 2 consecutive years, your pre-settled status was lost. They used the word lapse, didn't they? But the government's now said that pre-settled status will only be lost after 5 years, not 2 years. So can you tell me about when this change came into effect and what this means in practical terms for people who will be affected by the change?
So the Home Office made the announcement in April this year.
Yeah.
And what they said was for the purposes of considering automatic upgrades, what they will do is look at people's continuous residence. And if a person has been in the UK for 30 months in the last 60 months, they will automatically upgrade them, even if they've previously had a period of leave, a period of absence from the UK of a continuous period of more than 2 years, and it won't be treated as being lapsed effectively.
Okay. So this is going to kick in to those situations where the government's looking at upgrading from pre-settled to settled.
Yeah.
And previously, an absence of more than 2 years would mean they wouldn't automatically grant settled. But now, provided the other requirements are met, that's no longer a bar.
So basically, the best way to understand it is, I think, so when Brexit happened, i.e. on the 31st of December 2020. That was the cut-off period for beginning your period of residence in the UK. Unfortunately, it also coincided with COVID.
Yeah.
So there were loads of people who, for various reasons, travel restrictions or because of guidance from their universities, requirements of their work, their families were unwell, they had to be outside the UK for a longer period than was originally envisaged as being sort of reasonable by the Home Office,
Yeah.
in order to keep your pre-settled status. After sort of various challenges to the Home Office on how they were going to treat people who had broken the continuous residence requirement for these reasons, they introduced new guidance, which was really complicated, about
Yeah.
how you could explain that you had longer periods of absence.
Yeah.
And there were various sort of permutations of this. I think because of that, that would have made the automation process almost impossible, because there'd have been loads of people who have been outside for longer than 2 years, but then if they were asked about it by the Home Office, they would say, oh, I met the guidance because I have 1 year because of this important reason and 1 year because of COVID, and it would have made it very difficult.
Yeah.
So what they've done is they've simplified it and said, look, if you've been here for 2.5 years and the 5 years immediately preceding your application, we'll forget about a longer period of absence since your
Yeah.
continuous period began before the 31st of December 2020.
Got it. And I suspect you're not going to be able to answer this because I suspect we don't know. And maybe it's a really narrow group of people that would even be interested in this. Over the years, not often, but I've sometimes had people come to me who have already had more than 2 years continuous absence. And they've come to me and I've been like, well, your pre-settled status has effectively ended. And so they've, kind of just, okay, well, fine then, and gone away and got on with their lives outside the UK. Do you think there's anything, and I think we probably don't know, but do you think there's anything that can be done for that group of people? So not the ones that have had more than 2 years, but have then come back and just got on with it, but
Mm.
those who've relied on what was said before to kind of think, okay, well, there's no point in continuing in the UK. Do you think that kind of that can be fixed, or is that ship sailed, or we will just have to wait and see?
I don't know. I think we'll have to wait and see. But what the Home Office have said for now, they wrote an open letter to the 3 million, which is the sort of preeminent group which advocates for EU
Yeah.
nationals affected by the scheme. And what they've said to them is that this relaxation of the rules is only intended to benefit people who are here now, who
Okay.
have a continuous
Okay.
qualifying period as of now,
Okay.
not intended to allow people to come back in and sort of restart a continuous qualifying
Okay.
period. But having said that, if your pre-settled status hasn't expired,
Mm.
if you've got your visa and it shows you've got pre-settled status, you can still travel into the UK
Yeah.
on that, it seems to me. But I wouldn't rely on it to try and build up a new continuous
Time to
qualifying
settle
period.
status.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how things stand at the moment, but that may change.
Okay, but the government has expressly said this is intended to benefit people who have kind of made a life for themselves here,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than to help people who've gone away and set up elsewhere.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and so this is all part of the government's expansion of a process, kind of automating. They're using this automation language, automating decisions on people's status. So the government's been automatically extending people's pre-settled status or upgrading it to settled status for some time now. As of what you were saying, April 2026, we're seeing this automated process extended in two ways. Firstly, the automation, I think you kind of alluded to it, but it's maybe helpful to just say it clearly. The automation process will now cover those changes introduced last year to how people qualify for settlement. So since last summer, we've had this new law, as it were, in place, or new policy. It's law. It's in the law, right? It's in the Appendix
Yeah.
E
So
that says, yeah, go on, you tell me
I'll
rather than
tell
me
you.
trying to tell you.
So the rules as to how you calculate a continuous qualifying period have changed, as you said. Previously, you had to be in the UK for 6 months out of every 12-month rolling period. And what the rules now say is if you already have pre-settled status, what they're going to look at for the upgrade process is whether or not you've been in the UK for 30 months out of the 60 months immediately preceding either when you submit an application or when they consider the automation
Okay, so this is,
process.
but it's now become an part of their automation. So
Yes.
by automation, we mean that people don't have to apply, that they're doing it of their own accord.
So
Uh,
what they've said they're going to do is 6 weeks before a person's pre-settled status is due to expire,
yeah,
they're going to start looking at their own records, travel data and HMRC records to see whether they can automatically upgrade a person to settled status.
okay,
And the residence period they're looking at for that process is whether they can see evidence that in the last 5 years you've been in the UK for 2.5 years.
okay. And that's running checks against HMRC, so tax
And
payments
travel data,
and travel data.
yeah,
Okay,
and benefits. But
and
they're
benefits.
aware that travel data can be um, somewhat unreliable.
Okay. So that's, you said 6 weeks before people's pre-settled status is due to expire. That's the step they take.
Yeah.
And the other big change, as I understand it, in automation is linked to rather than upgrading people's pre-settled status, it's ending people's pre-settled status, so curtailing.
Yes.
So,
So
but this is a more active thing they're doing, is it?
this is now a more active process. So what they've said is that in the first phase of their sort of curtailment assessment, they're going to be looking at people who've been outside, or they believe have been outside the UK for more than 5 years. So there's sort of their top layer of people they're looking at are people who've had really long absences, and those are the people who they're going to start looking at first. And what they will do is they've said they'll send a minded to curtail email to those people.
Yeah.
They're going to, because we were concerned that people may not receive an email
Hmm.
because their contact details may have changed or for whatever reason. And they're also going to put a flag on their e-visas, on their online status to say, we've sent you an email, please look at this. So that's their check against people not receiving the email. Anyway, what the minded to curtail letter is going to say is, we've checked our records. We think you've been outside the UK for X years, months.
Hmm.
If you disagree with this, if this is wrong, please send us evidence of your residence for these specific periods that we're missing evidence for. And they'll give people 28 days to respond to that.
Okay. So they're starting with people who've been absent for more than 5 years,
Yeah.
but there can't be that many people that have pre-settled that are absent for more than 5 years, given that we're in 2026 now, can there? Or I guess there's a
I,
small
I don't know
cohort.
what those numbers would be.
Yeah, because just to be clear, I mean, it's obvious I know to you, Elisabeth, what I mean, but just to be clear to anyone listening or watching, the majority, although not all people who were granted pre-settled status, it often ran from before 2021. And then some people were able to extend it in certain circumstances or had it extended. But it would be weird how they would then have clocked up more than 5 years absence from the UK.
Well, I'm not sure because they've been automatically extending, haven't they? So there could be people who received automatic extensions,
That had already
even
been
though they haven't
outside.
been here for a long
Okay,
time.
okay. Yeah, that's fair
And so
enough. That makes
so
sense.
those people also be covered.
Okay. So they're sending out these notifications or these emails, and sometimes they're adding it to, you said, people, or they're always also adding it to people's e-visas so people can see these. And we'll talk a bit more, I think, in the next session about what that process is and how it's dealt with and what people should do if they get one of these notifications. In the meanwhile, what plans can or what steps can people take to, I suppose, minimize the risk of curtailment or receiving one of these negative notifications before they come through, Elisabeth?
Okay, so first and foremost, what the Home Office has said is if you get a minded to curtail email, there's obviously a deadline for responding. What they've said is that if people are proactive, if they phone up the resolution centre and say, I don't think I'm going to be able to get this evidence within 28 days, they will extend
Okay.
the period for responding by a further 28 days. So as always with these things, the most important thing is not to ignore it.
Yeah.
If you think it's going to be difficult, let them know.
Yeah.
And they should extend it for you because it's not only their consideration, and I think we'll talk about this next time, is not only going to be about dates alone, it's also going to be about whether they consider it's proportionate to curtail your leave. And that will involve a lot of other considerations about the reasons for you being here, the links that you have in the UK, etc. But we'll go into that another time.
Okay. So in the meanwhile, I suppose our advice is just, as we always say, kind of keep every bit of paperwork you're given, keep records, keep letters. Obviously, if you're working, and you're paying tax, or if you're receiving benefits, there's going to be a natural paper trail. But for those other times, just keep records, keep bills, keep everything basically to show.
And keep the Home Office updated as to where you are. So
Yes. That's
if your
really
email
important.
address changes, please let them know.
Yes. Okay, I think that's it for now. Thanks for joining me, Elisabeth. So we're going to be back in a couple of weeks to talk in a bit more detail about what people can do if they actually receive one of these curtailment notifications.
Thanks,
Thank you
Cam.
for being here.